Here we go. Okay, great. So welcome everyone. My name is Abba Kaiser. I am the WSU Food Systems Project Manager, and I'm thrilled to be here today with you on the regional call. I know folks are going to be trickling in, and we're going to be hosting this on our YouTube channel after the fact. So folks will be viewing post meeting as well. Welcome to our regional call. We host these 4 times a year to get folks connected across the value chain of grains, and we're glad that you are here with us today. If you could mute yourselves, if you're not speaking, that would be super helpful. Before we get started, I just wanted to first acknowledge my friend Walter McQuillan, also known as Cluathel. He's the Makah chief here on the traditional tribal lands of the Makah, where I live in the Port Townsend area out here on the peninsula. And just a big thank you to Walter and his family for continuing to educate the community and to bring their cultural traditions to our community, and to be so generous with their cultural ways. And just to acknowledge the many Coast Salish peoples who have stewarded the land where I'm on currently, the Chimicum, the Clallam, and the Makah. You can also find out very quickly and easily whose land you are on if you want to text your zip code to the number shown there on the screen. 855-917-5263. And you can post whose land you're on in the chat. I will text that number in the chat as well. And if you want to type into the chat just your name, your location, and what your role is in the whole grain chain. There's so many of us here who are working to make this regional grain economy concept really go and really work. So please use the chat, please text that number. I'm just going to give a quick overview of the call before we get started. So we're going to do an intro and a welcome, which is where we're at now. And then we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about Grains Week, which was an event that we co-hosted with a bunch of other organizations. You'll find out more about in just a moment. And then we'll have an open announcement time for folks to share the initiatives that they're working on and that they're really excited about. So we hope that you'll stick around for that and network and talk about what you have coming up so we can all get involved and support you. We'll come back at the top of the hour for 5 minutes just to do a wrap up and talk about the next call. So just a little bit more about our program. I work under Dr. Laura Lewis. She is the statewide food systems program director and the Cascadia Grains Conference chair as well. I work also with my colleague, Nicole Witham, who's the statewide coordinator who runs a lot of our other programming within the food systems program. And we are an interdisciplinary team made up of over 100 WSU faculty, staff, and non-WSU partners to deliver multidisciplinary expertise across all regions of the food system, mostly focusing on small-scale regional farmers in Washington state. So please get in touch with us if you're interested in collaborating on any kind of project or want to find out more about what we've got going on. It's foodsystems.wsu.edu. A little bit more about Cascadia Grains Conference. It's really turned into more of an initiative, especially with COVID, canceling all the conferences. But we were born in 2013 out of a desire to connect farmers and processors and resource providers across the value chain. We were started by a grad student of the Bread Lab in collaboration with Extension in Pierce County and the WSU Thurston County Extension. So they led the first Cascadia Grains event in Tacoma in 2013, and 8 years, 2,400 attendees, 180 classes, and so many sponsors later, we have come to this, which is our shared values as a group. We were able to help folks help us identify what their values are in 2020 when we met at our conference. And you can see that these are the 6 top values for the group: taste and flavor, cultural relevance, environmentally sound practices, domestic, local, and regional markets, health and nutrition. And what I'm particularly focused on is equitable access, especially within the grain chain. We did create a discussion listserv. You can join if you go to tinyurl.com/CGC listserv. It's an unmoderated list, and you can post your questions, your needs, your extra supplies, etc. If you join this listserv, you'll have to double Octaverify and make sure that you want to join, but you can do that at that website listed below. We'll send that out after the call as well. Quick acknowledgement that we are not the only ones doing this work. Thankfully, there are many partners throughout the nation. Here are just a few of them. I know some of you are on the call today, but we're really thankful that there's a growing groundswell of the local grain movement nationally. And through COVID, we all got in touch with each other, more so to do things like Grains Week 2021. You know, we were forced to collaborate, and when the earth got flat for many of us, and you could see that we partnered with the Artisan Grains Collaborative, Cornell University, UW-Madison, Wisconsin, Oregon State University, Grow NYC Green Markets, eOrganic, and of course the Culinary Breeding Network to bring an educational week-long celebration of grain systems that we called Grains Week. It was funded by a grant that these partners below had received. And so we were able to leverage that funding for all of our projects to really deliver free information, including research, talks about community sustainability and the health of regional value-added small grain economies. And of course, all of you know that we focus on everyone: farmers, bakers, brewers, distillers, millers, maltsters, consumers, politicians, whoever you are, you have a place at the table here. And we're gonna just do a quick recap of Grains Week. You can see here that, you know, we really tried to focus on the whole value chain. For our team in particular, we were really focused on this area, the plant stewards, the chefs, the bakers, the brewers, and the importance of reciprocity and cultural competency in the local grain system, which is, I know, a growing interest for many people in this world. So in the world of local grains. So we're really excited to be a part of that. Much like the Cascadia Grains Conference in person, we saw about 15% farmers in attendance of the online event. We had mostly bakers tuning in, home bakers, we call them SHBs, serious home bakers, followed by academics and consumers, but we had folks representing the whole value chain in one way or another. You can see here that most of the folks tuning in were from the Northwest. We had a large representation, but we also had folks from the Northeast, the West Coast, Southeast, and Midwest, and really all over the states tuning into this free educational program. We had over 1,400 people registered from over 45 states, 9 countries, including Italy, Brazil, Australia, the UK, Canada, and the Philippines. At the time of the report that we made about Grains Week, we had over 3,400 collective views on YouTube. And really looking at the farmers who registered, most of them were interested in growing primarily grains, followed by growing grains as a rotational crop. The folks who registered were also most interested in learning about wheat, followed by rye, then oats, barley, and buckwheat. And then we also included some other grains as well, but some of the other grains of interest were corn, amaranth, rice, quinoa, and sorghum, followed by kernza, teff, and triticale. So we had really a large group tuning in and lots of interest, lots of different areas. We were really thrilled to be able to provide this free programming for folks to learn, to provide professional development, to understand the sector, and to be inspired and learn about specialty grains. And then of course the bakers, well represented, learning about baking, and then finally infrastructure, or how to support the grain industry. So before we do a little recap on some of the sessions that we hosted, I just want to thank again all of the partners that were involved. You can see them all listed here. Many of them are still hard at work rebuilding the grain economy, local grain economy in their areas. And it was just such a pleasure to work with them and to be able to feature some of the research updates that they had as well. So thank you to all of the partners who were involved. We're going to do just a quick recap on one of the sessions that we were involved with that was entitled Cultural Synergy and Indigenous Food Waste, that was focused on corn. We're going to hear a little clip from chef and educator Neftali Duran, who is from the I Collective in Massachusetts, talking a little bit about a concept called cultural synergy that he created. And we won't hear from Pedro and Adriana from Three Sisters Nixtamal, but they were also a part of this session. And Sarah Owens, who's a James Beard Award winning author, and Richard Hansen and Sahari Garcia from Tejiendo Alianzas in Oaxaca were also a part of the session. I sort of convinced them to stick around. They had a session previous to this, and it just worked so well that we had them tune in and stick around. So a big thanks to them for being so flexible. And we're gonna hear now from Neftali, and he's gonna be I'm just gonna play a quick video here that really demonstrates the concept of cultural synergy that was introduced during that session. So I hope that you all can hear it. It's just, we're just gonna play about 4 minutes here. So here we go.
Corn is a very, very interesting thing. But talking about a African corn, or corn that has been in Africa for a few hundred years, I developed a theory that is called I call what I developed this term called cultural synergy, as opposed to cultural appropriation. So cultural synergy for me means the communities of color, and in this case, specifically, we're talking about African communities in Africa. At some point, they didn't have the choice of either being abducted and enslaved to come to the Americas, and or some of the foods that went back to them, right? So, um, so it's a very specific instance in which it is their core. Like they literally paid with their blood and their labor to like survive with this corn, and it's been a few hundred years. So for me, that's called cultural synergy as opposed to cultural appropriation. Um, with if we're talking about like colonizing power, or a now in more recent history. Nowadays, in this culinary scene in the US, if we're talking about a white chef, you know, co-opting food from specific places. I speak only as a Oaxacan, but as a person from Oaxaca, as an indigenous person from Oaxaca. But it's that's cultural appropriation as opposed to cultural synergy. And some other really good examples right now. We see brothers and sisters from different parts of the world making tortillas and making tacos. They come from cultures that have been oppressed and colonized, and in a lot of instances, like driven out of their own territories. Out in the California area in the recent history. What's the name of that taqueria called? But North African tacos. Was it Taco Revolucionario or something like that? But North African tacos, and then there is nowadays a lot of like people from Oaxaca opening restaurants with partners, with lovers, with business partners from other places, and they are mixing their own flavors. That is for me, that is synergy. That is like what's gonna happen naturally when we're talking about culinary food, when we're talking about food history, when we're talking about food ways that are gonna mix naturally, because because we like each other, we love each other, and people just visit each other houses. uh the Korean taco is also another story like that. Obviously, Roy Choi, has make really good money at it, and that's great. But at the end of the day, if you look at like his history, he not only worked with a lot of Mexican people when he was really young, but they used to take him to Tijuana or to the La Frontera, the border, and like cook with him and invite him to like the quinceañeras and the parties, and like that's a completely different relationship that grows over time. The In a lot of ways is based on trust, and I hope that is based on respect for the ingredients. And one of the most beautiful ingredients that we have is corn.
So that's just a short clip of the full session. It was such an incredible honor to be a part of that. And I just love that concept of cultural synergy that he describes there. And if you want to watch the full video, you can check it out on the Culinary Breeding Network's YouTube channel. Also, just wanted to mention that Neftali is involved in a restoration project. There's a water shortage in Oaxaca. You can follow his project at Naftali Duran _. That's his Instagram. And there's a link in his profile where you can find out more about the project and what he's doing to bring more trees back to Oaxaca and all of the work that he's involved in. I also wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about and introduce you to the Black Brew Culture Grains to Glass session. This was a session that featured Mike Potter from the Black Brew Culture, Bill Thorne from Sky Island Farm, and Drew and Rodney from Metier Brewing. So we're just gonna take a little moment to switch screens here and give you a short intro to the session as well. I hope everybody can hear everything okay. So here we go. Talk a little bit more. So here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Potter, founder of Black Brew Culture, co-founder of Blacktoberfest Beer Fest, and I am welcome today at Metier Brewing Company in Woodinville, Washington. My good friend Rodney Hines, owner of the company, my other great friend Drew Dilliam, general manager of Metier Brewing, and Bill Thorne of Sky Island Farm. Bill Thorne of Sky Island Farm. We're here today to discuss a new narrative in craft beer sourcing. Grains to Glass is a concept that we came up with for Blacktoberfest to discuss how us as brewers can connect with Black farmers and complete a concept of circular economics. Many of the conversations are kind of still wide open as to what do farmers need to connect with brewers and make produce products, adjuncts, grains that fulfill the needs and allow them to source directly from Black-owned companies. And the second level, to which we are in partnership with WSU Cascade Grains Week, is to start this conversation for how do we help farmers connect with the larger market and address some of the needs or some of the shortcomings that they're having in trying to produce grains for a larger economy. So I want to start off by just kind of getting an introduction to some of the guys sitting here. You already know who I am. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Drew, and how you got into brewing.
So I'm just going to pause there, and you can again watch the full session as well as the entirety of Grains Week for free on the Culinary Breeding Network's YouTube channel. I'm going to share the screen real quick to show you the link to do that. We'll also be following up with an email as well, but it's tinyurl.com/grainsweek2021. There were so many great sessions during the week, and we really hope that you can go back and watch them and share them and reference them as you're thinking about new initiatives and ways to take on this new era that we're in to really look at equity within grain systems and within agriculture in general. So a big thank you to all the speakers who were a part of this incredible week, and to all the partners. We're going to be moving now into announcement times. And it seems like we have a somewhat small group, so I think we'll just stay in the group here and not do a breakout room. But I'm going to stop the recording as well so that we can speak freely. But I'm going to do that now, and we'll come back together at the top of the hour here. So I'm going to just pause.